Hey there, how's it going everybody? In this video, we're going to be using Python and the YouTube API to calculate the duration of a YouTube playlist. Now, this is something that you would assume would be included within YouTube itself, but for some reason, playlists on YouTube don't tell you how long a playlist actually is. To show you what I mean by this, I have my Django tutorials open up here, and this is my Django playlist, and you can see that it gives me, the number of videos, when it was last updated, and things like that, but it doesn't show you how long it would take to actually watch all of these videos. And I feel like that would be one of the first questions that people might have when they go to a playlist is how much time would it take me to watch this entire series and learn this? And this is something that I've run into a lot personally. If I'm watching a YouTube course or something like that and want to know how long that course actually is, then there's currently no way to access this information from within YouTube itself. So we're going to use Python and the YouTube API to look at each video within a playlist and add up the duration of each video to see how long that playlist actually is. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, if you haven't watched my video on getting started with the YouTube API using Python, then definitely watch that video first, because that's where I show how to get a YouTube API key and connect to this YouTube service within Python so that we can start grabbing information. And I'm using the script that we ended with in that video to get started. Okay, so now that we have the API working here within Python, now we can use this API to grab just about any public information that we want. So like I said, we're going to be using a script that calculates the duration of videos in a specific playlist. So first, I'm going to need to access a playlist. And I'll grab just one of my playlists. In order to get one of my playlists, I can do a query to the API. Now, you can also go to a specific playlist here, and if we look up in the URL, then it gives the playlist ID here within the URL, but let me show you how to also do this within the API. So to get a list of my playlists, I'm going to need my channel ID. So I'll query my channel again here within this script, but instead of only accessing the statistics here, I'm also going to pass in content details. And this will give us more information about a specific channel. And if you don't know all of the arguments that we can pass into this part argument here, then we can always go back to that channel's reference in the documentation, and it tells us everything that we can query there. And again, I covered that in the Getting Started video. Okay, so if I run this, then it should give me some information about my channel here. And one of these pieces of information should be my channel ID. Okay, so I can see here that we have this ID tag, and this is my channel ID right here. So I'm going to copy that. And now that I have my channel ID, I'm going to list all of my playlists for my channel. And I'll be making multiple requests in this video. So I'm going to change the variable name here to tell these requests apart. So I'm going to call this PL_request instead. And now I want to query for playlists. So instead of channels, I'm going to change this to playlists. And now this doesn't have a for username, I don't believe, but I'm going to use the channel ID here instead. And I'll just pass in my channel ID. And now, since I changed the name of my request here to PL_request, I'm going to change that as well. And I'm also going to make this PL_response as well. So let's print this out. Whoops, and I got an error here because they don't have a statistics here for the parts that you can pass in. Again, we can look at the documentation for this, but I'm going to grab the snippet of that playlist instead of the statistics for that playlist. So if I run this, then I should get some details and snippets of my playlists. And this is going to return the first 5 playlists on my channel. If we want to grab more than a single page of values from a response, then we'll see how that we can do that in just a bit. But if I look down here in the output, then I can see that it returns a dictionary, and my playlists are in a list of values within this items key here. So if I wanted to loop over these, then instead of just printing out the entire response, I could say for item in PL_response and access that item's key to loop over those. And now I'm just going to print out each item, and then I'll put in another print statement here as well so that we have a line between each of these. So now if I scroll up here, Now this is going to give us information specific to each playlist. Now I know that this might be a bit difficult to read here, but if I look here at the title of this top one here, then we can see that this one is my pandas tutorial playlist. And if I look through this information, then there won't be a total duration for this playlist. It gives me, the URL and things like that, but the duration isn't within this information either. So I'll just use this pandas tutorials playlist here, and let's go ahead and calculate the duration of this pandas playlist to see how this is done. And then I'll show how we can do this for any playlist. So to do this, let's just loop through all of the videos in this playlist and keep a running total of the duration of each video. So to do this, I'm going to grab the ID of the playlist so that I can loop through that playlist videos. And it's here close to the top of this information here. We can see this ID tag here. This is the ID of this pandas playlist. So now I've got that playlist ID copied there. And now let's loop over the videos of this playlist. And we can do this by changing our API query here. And instead of going out to get a channel's playlist, I'm going to get playlist items, and I'm going to remove snippet here because we're only going to want the content details of these playlist items. And now instead of channel ID, this will be playlist ID. And now I'm going to paste in the ID for that playlist. And now let me run this and see what we get for our result here. Okay, so we're looping over the items in this response. Let me scroll down here a bit. And this is the content details about the videos in the playlist. And actually, this is also just the first five videos, but we'll see how to get all of the results here in just a bit. But first, let's look at the information that we're getting back for these videos. So we can see that we're getting a video ID, or here's the video ID here, when the video was published. But unfortunately, this doesn't have the duration of each video listed within here either. So instead, within this loop, we're actually going to need to query the video resource from the API with each video ID to get more detailed information about each video. So when I'm looping over the videos in a playlist, let's only grab the video IDs, and we can see right now each of these are within the dictionaries here within our information. So the video ID here is actually within this key, this content details key, and that key has a value here of this information, and this is also a dictionary. So we first need to access the content details key and then the video ID key within there. So in order to do that, I'm just going to print out for each item, and this is an entire item here, I'm going to grab the content details key, and then I'm going to grab within that value the video ID key here as well. So now let me actually make this its own variable so that it's a little easier to see here. So I'm going to call this vid underscore ID and set this equal to that. And now let's print that out. And now if we run this, now we're getting the the video IDs of our first 5 videos within this pandas playlist. So now that we're getting the video IDs for these first 5 videos, let's go ahead and write the code to tally up the duration of these first 5 videos first, and then we'll learn how we can then loop over all of the pages to get all of the videos for this playlist. So I can grab additional information about these videos by sending a request to the videos resource using the API. And we can automatically use multiple video IDs at once when making the query, just to cut down on the number of calls we're making to the API. So I'm going to go ahead and add all of these IDs to a list. So to do this, I'm just going to create a list here above this for loop and call this vid IDs and set this equal to an empty list. And now I will just append each of these video IDs to that vid IDs list. Now I could have done this using a list comprehension, but our for loop works just as well. Okay, so now outside of this loop, I'm going to write a single query to the videos resource to grab all of these videos. Now, I can't just pass in a Python list like we have here with the video IDs. It actually needs to be a string of comma separated values of all the video IDs that I want to get information about. So to get a comma separated string from a list, we can use the string join method. So to see what this looks like, we can specify a string. So I can say, a comma, and then do a dot join on that string, and then pass in a list. So I'll pass in my list here of vid IDs. And what this will do is it'll take all of the items in this list and separate them with a comma. So if I run this, then we can see that now we have all 5 of these video IDs as a string that are comma separated. So now I'm going to use this here, and I'm going to query the videos resource using the API. So I'm going to have a new request here. So I'll call this vid request, which is different than our playlist request up here. And now we're going to use that YouTube service and access that videos resource. And we want to do a dot list so that we can list out information on these videos. And again, this takes a part argument. And again, I'm just going to type in content and details here just to get some details of each video. And now we can pass in the ID of the video that we want. And we can pass in a comma separated value of multiple IDs. So I'm going to paste that in there. Now, there is a limit of how many video IDs you can pass in, which I believe is 50. And if we have more than 50 IDs, then we'll see how to work with that here in just a bit. I do have a couple of playlists that have more than 50 videos. Okay, but for now, let's see what we get for a response here. So I'm going to say vid response is equal to vid request dot execute. And now, just like we did earlier, that should give us a response for our video items. So let's loop over that response just like we did by saying for item in vid response and access that items key that we get back from the API. And then I'll just print out each item. And then I'll also leave a blank line after each item to kind of break that up a bit. Okay, so now for each of these videos, now we can see we're getting some more detailed information from this videos resource. Okay, so again, we have the video ID here, and within the content details, we can see that this time we are getting the duration here. It's also giving us the dimension and definition and things like that. Now in this video, we are specifically interested in the duration. So let me only grab that item from each of these results here. So that is within this content details key, and within there, it's within the duration key. So if I, again, I will capture this in its own variable here. So I'll say that that is the item. Then I want to access the content details key here. I'll just copy and paste this so I don't mistype anything. And then within content details, I want to grab the duration. Okay. And now let's print out this duration. And now let's go through and actually print these out. Okay, so we can see that this is a bit weird of a format here for a duration. So we can see here that it starts with the letters of PT. I'm not sure what that means. It could possibly stand for playtime or something like that. And then we have a number here followed by an M. So I'm assuming that that is the number of minutes. And then there is another number here followed by an S. So I'm assuming that that is the number of seconds. So we need to parse these out so that we can tally up the duration of the entire playlist. So to actually parse these out, I'm going to use regular expressions. Now, I know regular expressions can be a little intimidating for some people, but we're going to be using very simple expressions in this video, and I'll explain exactly what we're doing along the way. But if you would like to know more about using regular expressions in Python, then I do have a video on that topic specifically. So I'll be sure to leave a link to that video in the description section below for anyone who's interested. So to begin writing our regular expressions, I'm going to first import the regular expressions module at the top of the script. So up here, I will import RE. And now I'm going to compile a few different expressions. So first, we know that let's look at our pattern here again. We know that the number of minutes is a number in this string that is followed by an M. So to write this expression, I will go ahead and put this up here right above our response. Actually, let me just put this above the for loop here instead. And I'll minimize this so we can see a little bit better. Oh, and actually, this is the wrong for loop here. I want to be down here. Okay, so let me create this expression right here. So I'm going to call this minutes pattern and set this equal to. And now we're going to compile a regular expression. So we can do re.compile. And now for our regular expression, let's pass in an R. And that just allows us to pass in certain text without Python interpreting it in a certain way. And now I'm going to do parentheses here. And these parentheses allow us to capture a group of data. Okay, so what do we want to capture? Well, we want to capture a digit. So that is \D. And also, this could be more than one digit. So down here, we have a 23. So if we put in a plus sign here, then that plus sign actually means that it's going to capture one or more digits. Okay, so now what digits do we actually want to grab here? Well, it's going to be all of the digits that lead up to an M. So when we search through our regular expression pattern here, it's going to say, okay, have this group here of one or more digits before an M. So when it searches through, it should find, oh, okay, I have 23 here are my digits before an M. And we can basically do the exact same thing with seconds. So if I copy this pattern here, and I'm just going to call this seconds pattern, we want to grab the digits before a capital S. Okay, and finally, I know that none of these videos that are printed out here now showed this because they weren't long enough, but I've written a script like this previously, and I know that if the video is over an hour, then it will also follow this same logic, but instead it will have a number that is followed by a capital H. So I'm going to make an hours pattern as well. So we'll paste this in here. We will call this hours pattern, and these are going to be digits followed by a capital H. Okay, so now that we have our regular expressions compiled that can find our hours, minutes, and seconds. And again, if these are confusing to you, then I do have a more in-depth video on using regular expressions within Python, and I will link that in the description section below. Okay, so now let's go ahead and search for these values within our duration string and print these out. So we can do this here within the loop. After we get the duration, then I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to say, okay, our hours are going to be equal to our hours pattern dot search. And I want to search this duration. Okay, and we're going to do this for for all three of hours, minutes, and seconds. So we'll do minutes here, and we'll have this be minutes pattern. We'll have this be seconds pattern, and we will call this seconds. And now let's print out all three of those hours, minutes, and seconds. Okay, so now if I save this and run this and print this out, then let's take a look here at what our results are. So let's just look at this first result here. So for hours, it's actually printing out none. We got no results for hours since this video is less than an hour and it didn't match anything in that string for that value. And then we can see that our second value here, we did get a match. It tells us the span of that match, which are which characters in the string matched our regular expression. And also it gives us the match itself. So these are, we can see here, which is 23 minutes. And we can also see that we got a match for seconds as well, with the same information, where it can be found in the string and also what that match is. Okay, so if you remember what I said above about our regular expressions, we captured just the digits in a specific group so that we can parse those digits out specifically. And we can parse those out by accessing the group of these results here. So for example, above my print statement here, if I was to instead say, okay, these minutes, I instead just want these to be minutes dot group and grab that first group. And this would give us the string of 23 instead of the entire match of 23M for the minutes. Now, I don't want this to be a string. I actually want this to be an integer. So I can also convert this to an integer just by wrapping this in the int built-in function here. Okay, and this should work here. So if I instead just print out these minutes instead of everything, then, okay, we can see that we got 23, 33, 17, 23, 40. Okay, that looks good. But there's actually one more thing that we need to do here, because if we think about this, then we need to remember that it is possible for us to not get a match for some of these regular expressions. So for example, our hours searched, that search returned none since those videos were all less than an hour. And if we tried to grab the group of a none value, then it's going to give us an error saying, hey, this is none. You're trying to access the group of a none value. I don't know what you want me to do. So we need to put in a conditional in place so that if our match is equal to none, then we'll just assign a value of 0 instead. Now, you can use a regular if statement here if you're more comfortable with those, but I'm going to use something called a ternary conditional here since it's a bit more simple in this case, and it'll also make it a bit easier to write. So with a ternary conditional, we can just say, okay, I want this value here if minutes, because if minutes is none, then it won't be equal to this value. We can put in an else 0. So just to read this over one more time, we're saying I want this value here if minutes. And minutes just means that it has some value. If it's none, then it'll go to this else statement here and assign a 0. Again, that's called a ternary conditional. If you're not familiar with those or not comfortable writing those, then you can also just use, a regular if-else statement. So now I'm also going to do this for hours and seconds. And whoops, I almost forgot here. I need to replace this part here within the ternary conditional as well. Okay, so now let's print out these hours, minutes, and seconds again to see what we are getting now. So if I run this, okay, then we can see that this looks a little cleaner now. Now we can see that for all these, we have 0 hours, 23 minutes, 1 second, 33 minutes, and so on. So now we're getting the hours, minutes, and seconds for each video. And now we need to tally up all of these video times. And I think the easiest way to do this will be to convert the video time entirely into seconds. And then we'll tally up all of the seconds and then convert them back to hours, minutes, and seconds once we've added all those up. One way that we could convert these to seconds would be to use some simple math by, multiplying by 60 and things like that. But an even easier way would be to use the time delta class from the datetime library. So let me import this here up at the top, and I'll show you how this works. So I'm going to say from datetime, we want to import time delta. And now let me scroll back down here and we will see how to use this. Underneath here, after we've calculated the hours, minutes, and seconds, in order to get the total number of seconds for each video, I can just say video underscore seconds is equal to, and then we want to create a time delta. So within this time delta, I'm going to say that the hours are going to be equal to hours here. And we'll do the same thing for minutes and seconds. So let me pass these in here. Okay, and I don't need that trailing comma. And now here at the end, after we have this time delta, now that it's created this time delta, the time delta has a total seconds method that we can run on this time delta object that will give us the total seconds of everything that we just passed in. So now let me print out video seconds instead of just hours, minutes, and seconds. So I'll run this, and now we can see that we are getting, all of the total seconds for each of these. And if you wanted to check this, then you can open up a calculator. So 1380 divided by 60, a little over 23 minutes, which is what that first one was. So that seems to be working. Okay, so we're definitely making progress here. So now we're getting the total number of seconds for each video. Now, remember, we're only getting 5 videos from this playlist right now. So let's see how we can actually get all of the videos from this playlist, and then we can tally up all these seconds. So to do this, we're going to need to use page tokens, which will allow us to get all of the results one page at a time. Now, each page is returned gives us a reference to the next page, and we can keep track of which page we're on using that page token. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to scroll up to where we first made our video request for the videos of a certain playlist. Whoops, and this is my video request here. I actually want my playlist request. That's why I named those differently there. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create an infinite loop that keeps grabbing pages until there are no more left. And then it'll break out of that loop once we're out of pages. So this is going to be a very long, or this while loop is going to take up a lot of code. So I'm just going to say, first I'll create something called a next page token, and we'll see what this does here in just a second. And for now, I'm going to set this to none. And then I'm going to say while true, which is an infinite loop. Now I'm going to take all of the code that we've written so far to grab these videos and calculate the seconds and everything. And I'm going to press tab to indent all of that within our while loop here, so that we can keep grabbing videos and doing these calculations as long as there are more videos left in the playlist. So to do this, we can pass in a few different arguments here to our playlist request. Now we can also pass in an argument for max results so that we can get more results per page so that we don't make as many requests to the API. So I'll just pass in the max number I can for max results, and I believe that is 50. So I'll say max results is equal to 50. And I also want to pass in the page token to let the API know what page of results we're currently on. And now the first time through this loop, our next page token is going to be equal to none, which will just give us the first page of results. So I can say page token, this is a capital T here, page token is equal to next page token. And again, the first time through that'll be none, which will just give us the first page of results. Okay, and after we get a page of results, then we want to execute that and do everything that we did before, get all the video IDs from that page, make a video request using those video IDs, parse out the hours, minutes, and seconds, and then finally down here at the bottom, once we have calculated the total seconds for each video, then we need to have a way to break out of that infinite loop. If we don't break out of that loop, then it'll just go on forever. So we're going to break out of the loop once there are no more pages left to query. So to check this, I'm going to write some more code here. Now realize here that I'm not within this for loop anymore. I backspaced here to where I'm no longer in that for loop. So to check whether there are any more pages left, we can use this next page token and set this equal to the playlist response. Remember, we want the playlist response, not the video response. And we just want to get a string here of next page token. And what this will do here is it will update our next page token that tells the YouTube API what page of results we're trying to fetch. And if there are no more pages, then this will just return none. So if this is none after we try to fetch that token, then we can just break out of the loop. It means that we've exhausted all of the pages. So I can just say if not next page token, then just break out of the loop. Now, actually, before I run this, I want to move a few things outside of our infinite loop. Now that we are inside of a loop here, it doesn't make any sense compiling these regular expressions every time through the loop. We only need to compile these once. So I'm going to cut these out, and let's move these here to a section above the while loop. So I will just compile these up here at the top, and I don't think there's any more code in here that needs to be removed from the while loop. I think everything else is good. Yeah. Okay, so if I didn't mess anything up here, then if I run this, then it should print out the total seconds for every video in my playlist. So if I look through here, we can see that we're getting more than 5. I believe that there's 11 videos total in my pandas playlist. So we got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, yeah, it seems to have gotten all those videos. Okay, so now at this point, all we need to do is add up all of these times for all these videos and then convert it back to hours, minutes, and seconds. So above our while loop, I'm going to create a variable called total underscore seconds, and I'm just going to set this equal to 0. And then within the loop here, each time through the loop, I'm going to remove our print statement since we know that that's working. Instead, I am just going to keep adding to our total seconds for each video's seconds. So this will keep a running total of all of the seconds for each video. And now, outside of our loop, on our main level here, I'm just going to print out these total seconds and see if this looks correct. So I'll go ahead and run this. And now we can see that we get 19,000 seconds, 151. So that's definitely more seconds than any one video. So that probably is getting that complete total. Okay, so this is looking good. Now, the total seconds here probably doesn't mean much to us. I don't know about you guys, but I can't just read 19,000 seconds and know exactly how long that is. So now let's convert these back to hours, minutes, and seconds. So there are a few different ways that we could do this. One way that I like to do this is using the built-in divmod function. So divmod allows us to divide two numbers, and it returns a tuple of the quotient and the remainder. So let's see what this looks like. I think it'll make more sense. So first, I'm going to convert my total seconds to an integer because I believe that right now it's a float. So just to be sure, I want this to be an integer. So I'll say total seconds is equal to, and cast that to an integer there. Okay. Okay, so first, I'm going to use divmod to get the number of minutes and seconds. So if we were to say divmod and passed in the total seconds here, and then what we wanted to divide total seconds by, we want to divide it by 60 to give us the number of minutes. So what divmod does is it returns a tuple of the quotient, which was how many times 60 went into our total seconds. And then it also, the second value is the remainder, which would be the number of seconds. So just to show what this looks like, we can say minutes and seconds is equal to that returned tuple. So just to show you what this returns here, so this is taking 19,000, roughly 19,000 seconds here. If I print this out, print out the number of minutes and the number of seconds, then what this did here was that divmod said, okay, 60 goes into that 19,000 number 319 times, which is 319 minutes, with 11 seconds left over. So now, in order to get the number of hours, now we can just take this minutes here and do the exact same thing. We can divide it by 60 and say, okay, however many times 60 goes into those number of minutes, that's how many hours we have. So I can pretty much just do the same thing I did here, but instead I'm going to say that now this is hours and minutes, and we want to divide the minutes by 60, and anything left over is going to be leftover minutes. So now let's just print out these values. So you could just print these out as, hours, minutes, and seconds. And if I run this, then we can see that we got, okay, that pandas playlist is 5 hours, 19 minutes, and 11 seconds. And you can format this however you like. If you want to use an F string, then we could say, I want hours, minutes, and seconds here, but I want them separated by a colon instead. So if I save this and run it here, then we can see that that's more of a standard time format. So we have 5 hours, 19 minutes, 11 seconds. Now, just to make sure that this is working with the pagination on the videos, now let me try to run this script on a much larger playlist. So if I open my browser back up, I also have my Python tutorials playlist open here, and we can see that this is 140 videos instead of just 11 videos. And again, if you ever want to get the ID of a specific playlist, then you can grab it up here in the URL. It'll say list is equal to, and then have the ID here. So I'm going to grab that ID and open up our script here. And now I'm going to paste in my Python tutorials playlist into this playlist ID instead of that pandas series. So now if I save this and run it, then that obviously took a little bit more time to calculate because it was going through those pages in the playlist and all those videos and making those queries to the API. But it gives us a result here of 60 hours, 26 minutes, and 37 seconds. So that's good information to know. It's good to know that if you want to watch my pandas playlist, then that would be 5 hours and something. If you want to watch all of the Python videos, and there's about 60 hours of content on there. So I've always thought that that's very good information to know. And I use scripts like this all the time whenever I am trying to learn something and watch a YouTube course. I want to know how long that course is. So, you don't only have to use a script like this on my playlist. You can go out to any playlist, grab that playlist ID, paste it in to your script here, and make those calculations for yourself. Okay, so I think that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully now you feel like you have a pretty good idea for how you can access playlists using the YouTube API and access videos using video IDs, and use that information to make some calculations yourself. Again, I use this all the time personally, and I think it's extremely useful being able to access the API in this way and get this type of information. But if anyone has any questions about what we covered in this video, then feel free to ask in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer those.